everybody, welcome to the HooperCast. Once again, I have not checked what episode number this actually is, so I have no idea, but I'll try and figure that out later, and it'll definitely be in the title description. I'm Connor Dempsey. I know I'm slacking. That's Dustin Weldon on the other end of the mic. Hey, Dustin.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
And yeah, we are here to deliver some, normally this first episode of the week would be film news, but here's the thing. We got a lot of movies that we want to talk about. Dustin and I have been away, and also Dustin and I are not big fans of award shows, and that's the biggest film news there is right now is the Golden Globes, and you can find recaps online of that with more resources on people who care about that topic, but we just don't, so we didn't watch.
We did not. I know vaguely who won what if I care about the person who won.
Exactly. So, sorry about my voice, guys. I almost caught the flu over the weekend. My entire family had the flu. My wife and both my kids had the flu all week. And I did not get it, but I got enough dry throat sniffles to
that sucks.
To de facto start losing my voice tonight. I've got my my Georgia shirt on tonight.
Good for you.
For the dogs. So anyway, that has nothing to do with the film we're talking about. So let's talk about the film we're talking about tonight. And that film would be Bright, which Dustin and I have both seen. This is a film by David Ayer. Mm-hmm. It is on Netflix. It is produced by Netflix. It is a Netflix film. You can go watch this right now on your computer if you have a Netflix account, which you probably do if you're watching us. And apparently you can buy Netflix stuff on hard copy if you refuse to pay for Netflix, yet you want to watch things like Stranger Things.
I did buy the Stranger Things Blu-ray.
You did?
I did. The one that looks like a VHS?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I could not buy it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
Well, okay, so I guess you could do that for Bright, but probably not yet because it's still a relatively new release. I think it was released when was that? In like mid-November? No.
Yeah. It's December.
This is December 22nd.
Yeah, it was December.
Was it? Wow.
It was.
Okay, well, anyway, Bright is a film by David Ayer. If you've heard us say that name before, it's because he directed, he's known for many things. He's the writer of Training Day, but we have, on this show, we have spoken about Fury, I believe.
Yep.
Which he directed and wrote, I think.
Yep.
End of Watch, writer-director. Suicide Squad.
Yep.
And now Bright. David Ayer is known for gritty cop films, basically. That's like his, I wouldn't even say a niche. It's not a niche. It's a large market. People like those things.
That's his genre.
But that's his thing. That's his mojo.
Right.
And what makes Bright different, and you might say, oh, why would I want to watch another one of those? One, because he does what he does well, if not predictably. But Bright is not just a cop film. This takes place in a pretty much a parallel present, so you've already got my attention, where there's fantasy elements. This is still like a realistic, gang-infested Los Angeles, but things like orcs, and I didn't say that real strange. It's between orcs and elves.
Orcs.
Orcs exist. Elves exist. There are centaurs, dwarves, and
wizards,
and magic wands, which are a big deal and are super powerful.
Yes,
and
they can do anything.
And this film stars Will Smith and Joel Edgerton. Joel Edgerton is an orc. They are a pair of cops. Joel Edgerton's kind of the rookie, chip on his shoulder orc, and Will Smith's like the older guy who's like, counting his years till he can retire, get his pension and all that stuff, move out of his house. Right. So it's a pretty, kind of generic, archetype pairing of the two of them, except you've got these fantasy elements, and really the film centers on the two of them stumble across a magic wand, and there are people who want it, and there are reasons why those people shouldn't have it, and lots of interested parties, and wouldn't you guess it, the police force themselves are corrupt, and nobody likes Joel Edgerton because he's blue, man. It's because the color of his skin.
Yep.
Dustin, in a nutshell, since that's really all we have, what did you think of Bright? Did you enjoy it?
I thought Bright was one of the worst movies I've seen in a long time. But I hate to rain on your parade. I always hate to like go hyperbole right off the bat, but it's not like that. It was dumb. What did you think? I know. I could tell by your pause. I'm like, oh, I stepped on his toes.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
Bright gets my fine rating. We still haven't developed our rating system.
Right. True.
Bright to me is fine. I think it's inoffensive. I mean, not like in like a hurt your feelings inoffensive.
Sure.
But I thought it was fine. I don't know. I the thing is, it's getting a lot of hate. It's got a 28 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are criticizing it for being an allegory for racism instead of just telling a story about racism.
Right.
Without involving magic and fantasy.
Right.
And I guess, but by that logic, you wouldn't make films like Planet of the Apes.
Right. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's what the original Star Trek was.
Right. So, that's a weak argument, but
it is.
I think for what it is, you know, granted Netflix wants to step out and start doing these like, you know, these releases on their service, perhaps to rival theatrical releases. And I'm personally a fan of that model because I don't want to go to the theater anyways.
Right.
But you know, for the bar that it sets for itself, I think that it hits it. I mean, it's a solid movie for what I know Netflix doesn't want us to think of it this way, but it's essentially a direct to video release.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally what it is.
Right.
And that's quality wise what it is. That's all I expected out of it. Netflix might go, no, this is like against Star Wars. It's not.
Right. It's not.
No. You know, it's free to subscribers. So, I thought it was solid. I don't know. I liked Will Smith in here. He's likable as ever, while still being like super hard too.
Yeah.
He's not like clowning it up or being stupid. He's you know, seems like a fully fleshed out character. I liked Joel Edgerton. I liked his character. I felt bad for him. But I wanted him to succeed because I thought that he was I felt like he was a good person. So now everything surrounding them was like, you know, super two-dimensional. It was like, look at it from the side and you can't even see it.
Right.
Like that. You know, it just everyone's blind hatred for Jacoby, the Joel Edgerton character.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was real cartoonish, and maybe that's the biggest problem a lot of people have with the film is like the opposition to them is really unrealistic. Not the physical, not like the witches and the elves and stuff, but like just the interpersonal opposition to these two men is extremely like, my God, what did they do to you? And maybe that's the point, but it's really ham-fisted and over the top or heavy ham-fisted.
Right, heavy ham-fisted. Yes.
Is that what your deal was with it?
On the whole, I felt like literally nothing about this movie worked, save for Will Smith. Like he was the saving grace of the movie.
Will Smith always works.
Yeah, Will Smith always works. Like
literally.
I've heard. Yeah, this is true. I've heard the argument that he kind of phones this one in. I didn't really feel like he did.
I didn't think that.
But I guess I could understand the argument. But I think that's more of a like his character isn't super deep, and does sort of live in archetypical territory. Does that make sense? Like it's not anything unexpected necessarily. Everything that he does, you would expect him to do because there's a story. But I don't think that's Will Smith's fault. I think that's a fault with the writing. I think Will Smith tried to save and salvage what he could, and that everything else was literally falling apart. And I think that started with the script. I think the script was half-baked. I think it had a really great concept, and it kind of tried to coast on its concept and say, like, hey, isn't this cool? And it never really gave me anything that it actually promised me. And then on top of that, the direction I felt was really poor. It was, again, I hate to say what you said, but it is direct to video, right? I felt like the direction was low tier. It wasn't anything stylistically pleasing, or even like, oh, that was great, like I can't believe they got that from that actor, or anything, because the actors, except for Will Smith, I felt like like they weren't working, so the direction couldn't have been there. And then on top of that, the shots, everything down to the editing, it just, none of it worked for me. And it's weird because it's a premise that should work for me. I mean, you see behind me my love for Lord of the Rings. It's a film that really should have worked. If you look at my movie shelf, there's a ton of cop dramas, and I should love this movie, but the problem with it is it feels like it takes the most stereotypical and archetypical elements from these things, puts them in a blender, but never bothers to actually make it cohesive or even try to do something new or fresh with it. So, we'll talk about another movie here in a minute that tries to subvert its own genre and the audience's expectations of it. This, I feel like, did the opposite. In fact. Yes. But I feel like this it never gave me something where I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Everything was, completely low-hanging fruit, down to, this girl that they find who's essentially River Tam, who, is just sort of there, doesn't speak, doesn't do anything. She is. And it's like they cherry-picked these great things and put them together, and you would think, oh man, that's going to be cool. Like, you got orcs, and you got Firefly, and you got Will Smith, but it's like it never, like, nobody was making the same movie. Yeah. It felt like David Ayer was like, this is what I wanted to be, but Max Landis was like, this is what I wanted to be.
Yeah, and that's the big thing to mention here is it's written by Max Landis, who, in my opinion, has a mixed has a mixed quality of writing. Like, there's movies, there's films like Chronicle that he co-wrote that I liked, but then you've got films that I didn't see American Ultra or Victor Frankenstein. They looked goofy, like not in a good way.
I've read his DC Comics miniseries Superman American Alien, and I think he's got great ideas. I think it's the execution of the ideas that it tends to be problematic. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's the directors coming in don't quite know what to do with his script, or if it's truly a script problem. Maybe both in this case. So, I guess in the end, Bright to me was the embodiment of like excess showmanship. I guess this is what it reminded me of. It reminded me of a student film, because student films always have these lofty concepts, right? It's like, here's something really crazy, but the actual execution of it is really nothing short of amateur. And that's what I felt this was. Great concept, terrible execution. Everything was done stereotypically, and then it was confusing what we should know and what we don't know. Like, there's a moment where they come across this home, and where the characters, the wizard characters, whatever they are, elves, I guess. The elves, they see, I don't even know. The elves, they come across like a dead body, but I don't know if it's dead or if it's alive, because it's alive, but what is it? Like, nothing makes any sense.
It's really disturbing to look at.
It is. It looks cool, but like there's no explanation as to what it is, and obviously I don't want exposition handed to me, but
it reminded me of when they walk up on a dead body in Seven. Like, it was just like, it was that, like, oh my God, what did he do to it?
It's completely terrifying, and like, but at the same time, at least with Seven, it's like, okay, I know feasibly what's going on here. He's dead. This is how, whatever. Yeah. But with this, it's like, well, they're alive, but their body is half missing, and I don't know what's going on. Their heart is outside their chest. Like, I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah.
And they never bother to explain that. And there's a lot of gaping holes where I feel like like maybe I missed a movie. Like, there was a prequel that I missed. And then, all this referencing the Dark Lord will rise again and all this stuff. And I'm like, I feel like you needed a Lord of the Rings style, like, long ago, kind of, exposition with Galadriel telling us what happened in the past age before we can figure out what's happening here. And the whole thing just seemed confused, and I was confused, and I didn't know if like I was dumb and like, did I miss something because I was only half paying attention, or like what was going on. But all in all, I felt like it was one of the worst, like most glossed over movies I've ever seen, where
it did feel very glossed over. The details, it was almost like they thought, okay, do we want to flesh out any mythology, like, and possibly, first
build the world?
Build the world. Maybe Netflix wants to make more of these. Or, right. And I think they announced they're making a sequel to it.
A sequel, yeah.
So it's like, okay, so why don't we build the world, or for the sequel, or at the very least enrich this one film, which should be the primary goal, and then just go, okay. And I feel like David Ayer walked in and said, "Who cares, dude?"
Right. No, this is true. And I know
David
we're running
Ayer
out of time.
Landis, I'm sorry, just like they seem like the oddest pair to me. Like they seem like completely opposite creative types and like just personality types.
Yeah, they definitely are. Last thing I'll say about it is, like, if you compare this to something like Man in the High Castle, where, it's this alternate reality. Man in the High Castle, even though it's a TV show, and I know you got to have a little bit of, leeway in your thinking for this because they've got more hours to build this, but the world is so much more expertly built in Man in the High Castle, because you're looking at, San Francisco, and you're looking at New York, and you're looking at Berlin, and you're looking at Japan, and you're looking at all these places, and so you get a sense of what the world is. But here the scope is so limited that, like, if you said, like, what does France look like in the Bright world, I have no idea.
It felt like a video game where, like, everywhere you are only exists to service the plot, and none of it, like, a good movie should make you feel like all these people have lives outside of the storyline you are looking at.
Exactly.
And Bright doesn't have that. You're right.
Right. It doesn't bother to build the world. So if you sat me down in front of a typewriter and said, write Bright 2, I'm like, well, but I don't know where to go. Like, there's been no groundwork laid. Yeah. I know you mentioned a Dark Lord, but I don't know what that means.
Right.
So, it's that sort of stuff where I just feel like it failed at world building, and it kind of failed at realizing its own concept, which is a great concept.
Well, if you want to check out Bright, it is on Netflix, and I think if you, at least for me, if you simply want to watch fantasy as it would occur in hyper realistic realism circumstances, where orcs are essentially second class citizens, and there's racism everywhere against them. Yeah. Then but they wear like hockey jerseys and stuff.
Right.
Then check it out. But if you want really an inch more than that, maybe don't. I didn't feel like my time was wasted, but I certainly wouldn't watch it again.
Yeah, I don't know that my time was wasted, but you're right. I have no interest in seeing this again. Bright 2 comes out, I don't rewatch Bright 1.
I'm not sure that I'm even interested in Bright 2, to be honest. So
right.
Based on this, and
All
right. Well, that's gonna be all for this episode. So, if you want to check our channel tomorrow, we've got other stuff. We're gonna talk about The Last Jedi. We've also got some rentals that we wanted to sort of chit chat about real quick. I saw some cool, maybe one or more cool movies that are out for rent that I wish I'd seen at the time or not. Who knows? Anyway, all right. Well, thanks for watching, you guys. Check us out tomorrow. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. Hopefully, is when you're watching this. Goodbye.
Goodbye.